After 34 years of marriage, I thought I'd seen every kind of cruelty people could hide behind a smile. I was wrong. The first hint came when my wife reached for her chair at our son's wedding reception and gave me a nervous little smile I'd known since 1989. "You always pull my chair out for me," she whispered. "I always will." I slid the elegant white chair back for her, just like I had done thousands of times before. In restaurants, on anniversaries, at church dinners, and every Thanksgiving in our dining room. But the chair wouldn't move. At first I thought the leg had caught in the carpet. I pulled harder. Nothing, a strange scraping sound echoed through the ballroom. People nearby stopped talking. My wife, Linda, looked down, confused. "Harold!" I frowned and bent lower. Then I saw it. A thick, glossy ring of hardened industrial glue surrounded every leg of her chair, bonding it to the polished wooden dance floor. For one silent second, I couldn't understand what I was looking at, then I heard it. A laugh, soft, quick, he behind a champagne glass. I slowly turned. Standing 20 feet away, my new daughter-in-law, Vanessa, leaned toward two bridesmaids with a hand over her mouth. She wasn't laughing because something funny had happened. She was laughing because this was exactly what she had planned. She never expected what happened next. "My name is Harold Whitmore. I'm 68 years old, a retired high school history teacher from Ohio. People who know me would describe me with words like patient, dependable, maybe even boring. I'm fine with boring. Boring men pay their bills. Boring men stay married. Boring men keep promises. For 34 years, I tried to build a family that felt safe. My wife Linda and I weren't wealthy. We weren't perfect, but we believed respect mattered more than appearances. When our only son Ethan was born, I promised myself he would never doubt he was loved. I coached Little League, even though I barely understood baseball. I attended every school play. I spent Saturdays helping him build Pinewood Derby cars that always finished somewhere near the bottom. Those weren't failures to me. Those were memories. Linda was the heart of our home. She remembered birthdays. She packed lunches with handwritten notes. She somehow knew when Ethan was pretending everything was fine. She'd simply place a hand on his shoulder and say, "Want to talk?" Most of the time, he did. When Ethan grew older, he became an engineer. Quiet, thoughtful, the kind of man who apologized when someone else bumped into him. Then, he met Vanessa. At first, she seemed wonderful, beautiful, confident, successful. She worked in corporate marketing and could hold a room's attention without raising her voice. She complimented Linda's cooking. She called me Mr. Whitmore, until I insisted she use my first name. She brought flowers when she visited. She remembered details from conversations. Honestly, I thought Ethan had found someone extraordinary. Linda wasn't so sure. One evening after dinner, while washing dishes together, she quietly asked, "Did you notice how Vanessa talks to restaurant servers?" I shrugged. I wasn't paying attention. I was. Linda rinsed a plate before continuing. "She's polite when people can help her. And when they can't," she didn't finish. She didn't need to. Linda rarely judged people. If she sensed something, I had learned to listen. But love has a way of making warning signs look like shadows. Over the next year, little moments began piling up. Vanessa corrected Ethan constantly. "No, sweetheart, that's not what happened. Ethan, let me explain it correctly." "Oh, honey, that's cute." Always with a smile. Always gentle enough that nobody could accuse her of being rude. But I noticed something. Each correction made Ethan speak a little less. At Thanksgiving, she rearranged Linda's table settings because they looked outdated. At Christmas, she replaced our family traditions with her own because ours felt too old-fashioned. She never argued. She simply acted as though everyone else was mistaken. Linda stayed gracious. She smiled, adapted, welcomed Vanessa anyway, because that's who Linda was. She believed kindness could soften sharp edges. Sometimes she's right. Sometimes she isn't. A month before the wedding, Linda invited Vanessa over for coffee. When she came home from grocery shopping, I found her standing quietly in the kitchen. She wasn't crying. Linda almost never cried, but her eyes looked different. "What happened?" She busied herself putting groceries away. Nothing. I waited. Marriage teaches you patience. Eventually she sighed. I asked Vanessa whether she'd like to use my mother's lace table runner for the family table at the reception. That's a sweet offer. I thought so. What did she say? Linda forced a tiny smile. She said vintage things belong in museums. I felt something tighten inside my chest. She actually said that? Linda nodded. Then she laughed and said she didn't want the wedding looking like a retirement home. I slammed the pantry door harder than I intended. That's disrespectful. Linda reached for my arm. Harold, no, please. She owes you an apology. Linda looked at me the way only wives who've loved one man for decades can, calm, gentle, steady. If Ethan's happy, I don't care. I do. She squeezed my hand. I won't become the reason there's tension before the wedding. That was Linda. She'd rather absorb pain than pass it to someone she loved. I wish I'd been more like her. Or maybe, I wish she'd been a little more like me. Because sometimes silence teaches cruel people that they can go further. 2 weeks before the ceremony, Ethan stopped by after work. He looked exhausted. Dark circles under his eyes. His shoulders sagged. Everything okay? I asked. Just wedding stuff. Stress? He laughed without smiling. You could call it that. Linda poured him coffee. He thanked her, then stared into the mug for a long time. Finally he said, Vanessa wants everything perfect. Every bride does, Linda replied kindly. He shook his head. No, another long silence. If one flower is crooked. He stopped himself. Linda reached across the table. You don't have to carry everything alone. He smiled weakly. I know, but I wasn't convinced he did. As he left that evening, I walked him to his truck. Before climbing inside, he suddenly hugged me, tightly, longer than usual. You okay, son? He nodded. Yeah, you sure? He looked toward the street. I just hope everyone gets along at the wedding. There was something in his voice, fear, not panic, not dread, just fear. I watched him drive away with a feeling I couldn't explain. Linda came outside beside me. What are you thinking? I think he's trying to keep the peace. She nodded slowly. I think so too. What if peace costs too much? She didn't answer. Maybe because she already knew. Wedding day arrived bright and warm. The venue overlooked a small lake surrounded by maple trees. Everything looked beautiful. White roses, soft music, families laughing, children chasing bubbles across the lawn. Linda wore a navy blue dress she'd spent 3 weeks pretending she wasn't nervous about buying. You look beautiful, I told her. She smiled like the young woman I'd married all those years ago. You've been saying that since I was 29, because it's true. She kissed my cheek. Flatterer. The ceremony itself was lovely. Ethan looked emotional. Vanessa looked radiant. When they exchanged vows, I saw tears in Ethan's eyes. I prayed they would build a life stronger than the small warning signs we'd noticed. I truly did, because despite everything, she was now family, and family deserves hope. After photographs, everyone entered the reception hall, music played, champagne flowed, people found their assigned tables. Linda glanced at the seating chart. Oh, what? We're at table 9. So? The bride's college roommates are at the family table instead. I frowned. That's odd. She shrugged gently. It's their wedding. I wanted to say more. Instead, I swallowed my frustration. Maybe there had been limited space. Maybe it wasn't intentional. Maybe. We reached table 9. It sat near the back of the ballroom, beside the service entrance. Every few minutes, waiters pushed carts through nearby doors. It was noisy, crowded. Far from the dance floor, Linda simply smiled. At least we can hear each other. I admired that about her. She could find sunlight inside storms. Then came the moment neither of us would ever forget. She reached for her chair. I pulled it back. It wouldn't move. At first I thought I was imagining it. Then I bent lower and saw the hardened glue sealing every chair leg to the floor, a neat circle, carefully done. Not accidental. Deliberate. My heartbeat slowed, not because I was calm, because I was furious. Around us, conversations faded. Someone whispered, "What's happening?" Linda looked embarrassed. Oh dear. She tugged lightly herself. Nothing. A waiter approached. Sir? This chair's glued down. His eyebrows shot upward. What? He crouched beside me. His expression changed immediately. Oh, he touched one leg. It's glued. The room grew quieter. I heard another laugh, the same laugh, soft, satisfied. And this time, I knew exactly where it came from. I lifted my head slowly, refusing to let my anger control me. Across the ballroom, Vanessa was pretending to admire the wedding cake while stealing quick glances in our direction. Every few seconds, she whispered something to one of her bridesmaids, and they struggled to hide their smiles. I had spent my entire career teaching teenagers. I knew the difference between innocent laughter and guilty laughter. This was guilt wrapped in amusement. The waiter stood up, clearly uncomfortable. "Sir, I'll go get the event manager." Linda gently touched my sleeve. "Harold, please don't make a scene." I looked at her. She wasn't worried about herself. She was worried about Ethan. Even now, even after being humiliated, that was my wife. She carried everyone's feelings before her own. I knelt beside the chair again, running my fingers along the hardened glue. It wasn't craft glue or something a child would use. It was industrial adhesive, the kind meant to keep things from ever moving again. Someone had planned this. Someone had brought it to the venue before the guests arrived. Someone had waited until no one was watching. The event manager hurried over, his face pale. "I'm terribly sorry, sir." He crouched beside me and immediately frowned. This wasn't here during setup. So someone did this afterward. It would appear so. He called 2 maintenance workers. Within minutes, they arrived carrying tools. One tried pulling the chair. Nothing. Another carefully tested the adhesive. He shook his head. "This stuff's serious." Around us, guests had stopped eating. People whispered. Phones quietly appeared. The reception music continued, but nobody was paying attention anymore. I could feel dozens of eyes on Linda. She lowered her gaze. That hurt me more than anything. My wife had always been confident. She volunteered at hospitals. She taught Sunday school. She could walk into any room with quiet dignity. Now she looked like she wished she could disappear. I leaned close. "Look at me." She slowly raised her eyes. "This isn't your embarrassment." A tear escaped despite her effort to hold it back. "I just don't want Ethan's day ruined. Our son didn't do this." She nodded. "I know." One of the maintenance workers stood. "We'll have to cut the chair loose." The manager looked horrified. The dance floor, it's either the floor or the chair. Before anyone could answer, applause erupted from the front of the ballroom. Vanessa had taken the microphone. She smiled brightly as if nothing unusual were happening. "Everyone," she laughed, "I hope you're all enjoying yourselves." Several guests clapped politely. Only a few. Most were still looking toward us. Vanessa noticed. For the briefest moment, her smile faltered. Then she recovered. "We'll be starting speeches in just a minute." She looked directly toward our table. Our eyes met. She smiled. Not kindly, victorious, as if she believed she'd already won. The maintenance crew finally managed to pry the chair free with a loud cracking sound. Part of the polished wood came up with it. Gasps spread through the room. The manager buried his face in his hands. Linda quietly stood. "I think I'd like some fresh air." I immediately offered my arm. Together, we walked toward the terrace overlooking the lake. No one stopped us. No one knew what to say. Outside, the evening breeze felt cool against our faces. The sounds of laughter inside became distant. Linda rested both hands on the railing. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Finally, she whispered, "Did I do something to make her hate me?" My heart broke. After everything. She was blaming herself. I turned her gently toward me. "Listen to me." She looked up. "You have spent your entire life loving people." She said nothing. "You raised an incredible son." Still silent. "You've helped neighbors, strangers, children, anyone who needed you." A tear rolled down her cheek. "You are not responsible for someone else's cruelty." She tried to smile. "I just wanted her to feel welcomed." "I know. I treated her like my own daughter." "I know. So why?" I didn't have an answer. Some people don't hurt others because they've been hurt. Some people hurt others because they enjoy feeling powerful. Before I could say another word, the terrace door opened. It was Ethan. His face had lost all color. "Dad?" I turned. "What happened?" His voice trembled. "People are saying Someone sabotaged Mom's chair. I looked at Linda. She gave the smallest shake of her head, silently asking me not to accuse anyone. But before I could speak, Ethan looked from her tear-filled eyes to my expression. He knew. What aren't you telling me? I hesitated. Then I answered honestly. I think it wasn't an accident. His breathing slowed. You think someone did it? I do. His eyes searched mine. Who? I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I asked, Son, when your mother got stuck, where was Vanessa? His face changed, almost instantly, not shock, recognition, as though a memory had suddenly returned. He stared toward the ballroom doors, then whispered something that made my blood run cold. Oh no. I stepped closer. What? He closed his eyes. About an hour before the ceremony, he swallowed hard. I walked into one of the storage rooms, and I thought Vanessa was talking to one of the decorators. He looked physically sick. I heard her laughing. What did she say? He rubbed his forehead. I couldn't hear everything. His voice cracked. But I clearly heard one sentence. He looked directly into my eyes. Watch his mother's face. It'll be priceless. A heavy silence settled between us. The wind rustled the trees around the lake. Inside the ballroom, the band began playing another cheerful song. It sounded painfully out of place. Ethan's shoulders began to shake. I thought she was joking. He covered his mouth with one trembling hand. Oh God, I should have asked what she meant. Linda stepped forward despite everything and embraced our son. He broke down in her arms. I'm sorry, Mom. So sorry. She stroked his back exactly as she had when he was 5 years old after falling off his bicycle. This isn't your fault. But deep inside, I knew the hardest part of this night hadn't even begun. Ethan stayed in his mother's arms for nearly a minute. Neither Linda nor I rushed him. Some moments in life deserve silence more than words. When he finally stepped back, his eyes were red. I don't know who she is anymore, he whispered. Linda gently straightened his tie. You don't have to figure that out tonight, but this is my wedding. She gave him a sad smile. And you're still my little boy. He laughed through his tears. You always say that, because you'll always be my little boy. I watched them, feeling both proud and heartbroken. This woman, my wife, had every reason to be angry. Instead, she was comforting the very person who felt responsible. That was Linda. She had spent her entire life putting broken hearts back together, even when her own was the one breaking. Before any of us could say another word, the terrace door opened again. The event manager stepped outside. Mr. Whitmore? I turned. Yes, I'm terribly sorry to interrupt. What is it? He glanced toward Ethan before lowering his voice. Our security supervisor would like to speak with you. My stomach tightened. Why? We've reviewed some of the hallway security cameras. Every muscle in my body went still. Security cameras. I hadn't even thought about them. The manager continued carefully. There may be footage that explains how the chair became glued to the floor. Ethan looked at me. Dad, I nodded once. Let's go. Linda caught my hand. Please. I looked at her. No yelling. I won't. No accusations until we know. You have my word. She squeezed my fingers before letting go. The manager led Ethan and me through a quiet hallway behind the ballroom. The farther we walked, the louder my heartbeat became. Finally, we entered a small office where 2 security monitors covered one wall. A gray-haired security supervisor stood beside them. He offered a respectful nod. Mr. Whitmore. I nodded back. You wanted to see us? Yes. He picked up a remote. I reviewed footage after the event manager reported the damaged chair. The screen displayed the ballroom nearly 2 hours before the ceremony. Workers were decorating tables. Florists arranged flowers. Servers polished glasses. Everything appeared perfectly normal. The supervisor paused the video. This is approximately 48 minutes before guests arrived. He pressed play. A woman entered from the left side of the screen. Vanessa. She was alone. She looked around carefully before walking toward table 9. Ethan's breathing became audible beside me. On the screen, Vanessa reached into a large designer handbag. She removed something. Even from the security footage, I recognized the silver tube, construction adhesive. She knelt beside one chair, then another. then another. Methodically squeezing glue around every chair leg. No hesitation, no confusion, no accident. She had done this before. She stood, examined her work, smiled to herself, and walked away. The room became completely silent. The supervisor paused the video. "I'm sorry." No one answered. Ethan stared at the frozen image of his new wife. His lips trembled. He looked like a man watching his entire future collapse in front of him. Finally, he whispered, "Play it again." The supervisor hesitated. "Sir, please." Without another word, the footage played a second time. Vanessa entered, looked around, applied the glue, smiled. Left exactly the same. No misunderstanding, no missing context, no explanation, just deliberate cruelty. Ethan slowly sat down in the nearest chair. He covered his face with both hands. Oh my God. I had imagined this moment 100 different ways over the past 20 minutes. I thought I would feel rage. Instead, I felt sadness, deep, overwhelming sadness. Not only for Linda, not only for myself, for my son. Because the happiest day of his life had just begun. The day he discovered the woman he loved had planned to humiliate his mother. The supervisor quietly cleared his throat. "There's something else." Ethan looked up. "What?" He switched to another camera angle. This one overlooked a side hallway. The timestamp was only 2 minutes after Vanessa left table 9. A bridesmaid approached her. They spoke for several seconds. Then both women laughed. The supervisor zoomed in as much as the camera allowed. There was no audio. But Vanessa clearly acted something out. She pointed toward the ballroom, pretended to pull on an invisible chair, then doubled over laughing. The bridesmaid laughed with her. Ethan looked physically ill. "Stop." The supervisor immediately paused the video. "I'm sorry, sir." "No." Ethan stood slowly. "Thank you." He turned toward me. For a long time, he couldn't speak. Finally, he managed only 4 words. "I have to know." "What?" "Why?" He walked out of the security office before I could answer. I followed. By the time we reached the hallway, he was already heading toward the ballroom. Fast, purposefully. Not angry. Determined. The reception continued, as though 2 different worlds existed under the same roof. The band played softly. Guests chatted in nervous little groups. Some danced. Others kept glancing toward our family. Rumors had clearly spread. Linda was back inside now, seated in another chair beside my sister. She looked relieved when she saw Ethan. But that relief disappeared the moment she recognized his expression. He didn't stop. He walked straight toward the head table. Vanessa looked up with a dazzling smile. "There you are." She reached for his hand. He didn't take it. Her smile faded slightly. "Ethan?" He spoke quietly, so no one else could hear. "Come with me." She laughed nervously. "What? Now?" She studied his face. Something frightened her. "What happened?" I said. His voice became firmer. "Come with me." Without waiting for an answer, he turned and walked toward the hallway. After a brief hesitation, Vanessa followed. Several guests noticed. Whispers immediately spread across the room. I looked at Linda. She silently asked me with her eyes whether she should go after him. I gently shook my head. No. She trusted me. The hallway door closed behind them. For nearly 5 minutes, no one came out. The music continued. The wedding photographer awkwardly pretended to organize equipment. Children stopped running. Even the band seemed unsure whether to keep playing. Then, a raised voice echoed from the hallway. "Vanessa." I didn't think anyone would know. Every conversation in the ballroom stopped instantly. People turned toward the closed doors. Another voice. "Ethan, lower, steadier. I asked you one question." Silence, then Vanessa again. "It was just a prank." The word echoed through the reception hall. Prank. I watched Linda lower her eyes. Somehow, that single word hurt even more than the glue, because humiliation always sounds smaller when the person responsible calls it a joke. A few seconds later, the ballroom doors slowly opened, and Ethan walked back inside alone. His wedding ring was no longer on his finger.